Okay, I'm back. Part 2. We want to add a spot for type. One of the things that we're going to use for type in this tutorial is just a rectangle. You don't have to use a rectangle when you do your own album cover. It's just a nice place where I can start to add a color for type. So I have my rectangle. I want to make sure that I can still change the blend modes. So it doesn't necessarily have to stay that solid. So that's just step 1, is just to have that rectangle. Then what we're going to do on top of that rectangle is we're going to add type. So you are charged with coming up with a band name. So I'm just using this. It's really simple, not very exciting. But I want you to then go to your window and open up your character palette. This is where you can get into some really cool type things. So I can highlight my type, and I can highlight my type here. And then I can just use my arrow key to kind of scroll through and think about if this is the right font voice that I want to use for my album cover. And just like with your very first project, you want to make sure that that font voice matches what you are doing. So now that I've chosen a font, I can change my color right down here in that same palette. And you want to have some contrast because you don't want to lose your type. Try not to change the scale, the width and the height, because the font looks kind of funny that way. If you need to make it bigger, you can just go in here and I can type, let's say I wanted to make it 100. So then I'm going to make my font bigger. Another option that I have with Photoshop, and it's also an Illustrator option, is that I can change that space right here between those words. And that comes in handy when I'm trying to look at filling my space. So anytime I have a regular number, it's going to spread my type out. When I have a negative number, it's going to bring my type together. So that's kind of something to keep in mind. If you're doing 2 different levels, you can see here this controls that line. So think about where and how you want your type. And you can place it on that space. Then we're going to get into layer styles. So if I double click right there, I am going to get these layer styles that open up. Now these work on all different kinds of layers. I'm just showing you what it looks like on type. I have 2 options. I can check the box, but I can also click on the box to add a lot more options. Anytime there's that little arrow, it's always something that I can start to play with. And we don't want to go so far that it looks really weird. We're just trying to add just a little bit. Okay, so remember, you can kind of play with those arrows. Okay, I can also add a drop shadow. Again, I can click on it to add it just automatically. Then as soon as I click on the word, then I get some control. So this is something that I would like you to kind of play with so you can kind of start to figure out how these different things work. It's easy to see with type because you can see that change right away. So I want you to try to apply some of those effects so you can see it comes up as an effect and it shows you exactly what you did to that type. Okay. Once I kind of have my type in place, I can come back to my rectangle and I can kind of change even that blend mode. So lots of options with that.